Oh yeah, welcome back to Battle of the Sexes, Battle of the Sexes.
Welcome to Break Time on Westside, your number one break time podcast show, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is Denver B, and this is Battle of the Sexes, episode 17, 5 episodes down from when the second season began. I don't know whether to say that it's a good thing, or probably y'all expected me to make more episodes. But either way, I'm here. Now, I was on the internet, and as much as that sounds like a very odd term, we know how interesting the internet is, and we know how horrific the internet can be if you actually go down the wrong paths. But luckily, I was on the good side of the internet. I was on IG, and I was just busy just scrolling down a bunch of memes here and there. So I happened to run into this one. I can't even remember it that well. It said something about how a lady having a dildo is okay. You know, owning a dildo for a lady is okay. Owning a vibrator is okay. But if a guy gets the Sex Master Pro 5000 with self lubrication and I don't know, like a separate holder for your cum fluid, blah blah blah, then he's automatically considered as a pervert. And that thing kind of hit me. It actually did hit me to a very interesting degree, because I was like, wait, why the hell is it that it's a problem for a guy to get a sex toy around here? Why is there so much, open disgust at the whole bit of, as a guy, you're not supposed to get like a sex doll or a sex toy, or, as most people would call it, a Samantha. So, I figured I should at least get into this on today's topic, because, as niggas, we getting a lot of the short end of the stick here. Because, let's be honest, it's not like there's anything wrong with it. At least, if it's used properly, it's like alcohol or weed. If you don't consume too much of it, as long as you don't get addicted to the whole thing, you're mostly pretty okay. The way I look at it, back to the earlier days when masturbation was like a problem. Like hell, if you actually go and predate masturbation to like old days, like way beyond our parents and grandparents, it was like considered a mental disorder. Yeah, it was considered a mental disorder. So it wasn't treated very well. Up until people realized the actual pleasure in actually masturbating. And when you think about it, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Emptying the tank every once in a while so that, some new content can come right through. New kids in the sack. I don't think there's any problem with it. So when I hear that, that people find a sex toy a bit disgusting or cheap, I usually kind of get very ish about the whole topic. Because the way I see it, it's entirely up to you whether you want to use a sex toy or not. It's a very personal decision, and no one should judge you for it. But, like back in the earlier days, like you're looking at when people used to look at masturbation as a bad thing. Nowadays, it's not as bad. If a guy comes out and he says, I masturbate, as long as he doesn't say that, he masturbates twice a day, every single day, he should be okay. Because anything on the twice a day thing, now that it looks like he's addicted, blah, 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 people will think that he doesn't have a good sex life. But in reality, people just want to get off. Some people want to de-stress. Some people want the pleasure. Some people have a very, very hyper sex drive. So I feel as though it's necessary for some people. Now, when it becomes okay for ladies to get vibrators and dildos, but niggas can't get a sex toy, like, what's it all about though? What is it all about? So I would come out answer one very simple question. Is it okay to get yourself a sex toy as a guy? Yes and no. That is the easiest way I can come out and say, is it okay to get a sex toy as a guy? Yes and no. That is, quite frankly, the best way to answer such a question. And I have reasons for both. Because it's not even about the whole women thing. It's just, as a guy, there's certain things about us that we only understand with ourselves. So from a proper guy perspective, I know very well, we have our moments, we get horny, we want to whack our meat, no, not November ended, So now, for some people, it's destroy Dick December. For some people, it's Dick Down December. And, people are down to go get some dick. And it's okay. It's entirely your choice. But I tend to be in this very interesting scenario where it's like there's a dry spell and sometimes there's like pussy. So you don't know if you're going to get like pussy, or it's like there's this point in time like when you're having a dry spell and there's not that much nunu going around. You're not able to get some, and you decide to whack your meat off. It's entirely normal. There's no big issue. People used to consider it disgusting. I think ever since people now started openly coming out and saying, you know what, I watch porn, everyone watches porn. I think masturbation started becoming a lot easier. And it became easier for both genders. Because once people realized that women also watch porn, because I don't know who the hell it was that put it into guys' heads and watch porn. Because they're not stimulated by visuals. They like to read stuff. I don't know if you are one of those people that went into like these two things for how to get girls easily, or I use this simple trick to get girls and it's never failed me. You click that link and then they start telling you about how this guy who was living this good life but was unable to get girls, his girl cheated on him with some very raggedy guy. The guy goes and tries to learn from pickup artists, fails, then goes and starts reading psychology books when he's like living from his car and shit, and then he learns. Mara, all of a sudden the guy starts dating supermodels. He's busy traveling places and the guy isn't even spending $1. Yo, the internet has lied to people for a long ass time though. Anyways, this guy kind of goes into the whole thing of literotica, whereby it's sex in a book. Quite simply, it's sex in a book. That's why 50 Shades of Grey will sell. Like the whole 50 Shades series will actually continue selling. It's because it's pretty much sex on a book. If you are in my university, USIU, and then you probably heard of the human sexuality class. People say that it's porn in a class. As in, if porn was a classroom, then that's human sexuality. But that aside though, like you look at the whole literotica kind of vibe with everything, and people would think that shorties don't watch porn, and because they'll only read it, they'll get turned on from like reading material and shit. Yo, shorties watch porn. If you didn't know, now you know. Shorties do watch porn, and they do get off from porn. They also go and they flick their bean a little bit here and there, and it's perfectly normal. So why is it a problem now that because they can get vibrators and dildos that we can't get our own sex toys? Because it's been long considered that, if a guy gets a pocket pussy or gets a sex doll, it's like now they've cheapened it out. They're not going to chase women. They're going to become like sex addicts that only use a sex doll. It's supposedly some way to replace women. So guys will stop making the effort, blah, blah, blah. Guys have made this thing like a whole vibe for, if you get a sex toy, if you get a sex doll, you're less than a guy. You're less than a man. It's been this whole preconceived notion of, as a man, you have to be able to chase your woman or your significant other, because, I'm a bit more accepting of the LGBTQ plus community. You go, you chase your significant other, you get them, and you get what you want. That's what it is, being a man. Like, you go and you get it. But going for the lotion, going for the sex toy, that's a cheap of satisfying yourself, and you shouldn't do it. And it's probably the worst thing that you're doing, and you're a little less of a man if you do it. I don't know why people kind of brought that up though. I don't get why people brought it up. And I feel as though it's been taken to a level where now it's become a lot harder for men to, come out and openly say, you know what, I do this. Because I think as guys, if we threw away most of the stereotypes, most of the biases, a lot of us guys do the same things, but we never want to talk about it because we're in the closet about a lot of this shit. Obviously, with a sex toy, you will probably have to hide it somewhere in your house so that your boys don't see it, so that your girlfriend doesn't see it. Because if your girlfriend finds you a sex toy, it's like, all of a sudden you're cheating on her, but you're not. I don't know. I should probably ask a bunch of ladies, if you find your man with a sex toy, does that mean that he's cheating on you, or what is it? Because if I find my woman with a dildo, if I find my woman with a vibrator, I'm not really gonna give a shit. Fine, yes, I will say, you know, I can probably give you the pleasuring as well. I don't see why I have to compete with a toy. But at the same time, I know very well I'm not really competing, because at the end of it, I'm the real thing. You get me? But maybe for shorties, it's the same compete mentality where it's like, now I'm competing with, you know, a doll that can possibly, keyword being possibly, with quotes, fulfill whatever desires he wants. And now it's like you're either playing second fiddle or, you know, you're an option. I don't get why girls will have a problem with it. Although I have talked to some and they all came out and they're like, no, we wouldn't want it if our guy got a sex toy, if we'd feel like it's disgusting in a sense, it's like making it look like it's just a cheap option. And I sat down, I listened to that, and I concluded that was absolute bullshit. If I whack my meat, it doesn't mean that I'll stop going to, you know, chase shorties every single day. All right, not every single day, but you get the point. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna decide, you know what, I'm done with girls, I'll stick to my lotion, I'll stick to my sex toy, I'll stick to the lube, and probably my right or left hand, whichever one I'm using. And at the end of it, I'll pretty much get done with girls completely. Like, I will say, not unless if you're an addict, I think most men can admit this. There is nothing that can replace the human feeling of sex. I don't think there's anything that can replace that. So even though you're whacking your meat, it won't replace it. There's still that level of, you know, I want some human meat on me. Like, there's that heat, there's that exchange of fluids, you know, like there's a whole disgusting mess that happens. Like, sex in itself isn't just penetration and coming. Like, it's a lot more to it. Like, there's other bits and bobs here and there that actually make it work, that make it such a good process. So I don't see why the hell it is that a guy would decide, you know, let me stop and just stick to my toys. Which is why I think if most guys got a sex toy, I don't think they'd stop. I don't think they'd stop chasing women. I don't think they'd stop trying to sleep with one woman or another. But I don't see why other people should think the same as well. Because women have vibrators, but they still sleep with men. Women have vibrators, but they still say that they do desire, you know, male contact, male intimacy. But then again, it's always been women don't entirely like sex. You know, their sex isn't about the pleasure, it's about connecting, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Unicorns going through a fucking cloud and shit. Women want sex for pleasure as well, by the way. And this is something that, ask women as well, even though they say that it's for connecting. Pleasure is one of those things. I don't even need to hear them sugarcoat that shit. Like, they still want that pleasure, because it's not, if you remove the pleasure out of sex, I don't think people would be having sex, really. Unless, you know, they probably just needed to get kids. That's the only time they probably put sex there. If you reduce the pleasure, oh, trust me, people would not want to have as much sex. But, you know, there's obviously the porn addicts, the masturbation addicts, the sex addicts. If you give them a sex toy, it might be a good thing or a bad thing. If it's a porn addict that is addicted to masturbation, giving them a sex toy is like moving them from weed to cocaine. It might actually get worse, in a sense that, you know, they'll get into it, they realize it feels even better than masturbation, or it might feel better than masturbation. I don't know. If anyone has any sex toys I can try out that's been unopened and untouched, y'all can just hit me up on breaktime_westside, and, you know, I will be sure to test it out and give a good feedback. But, you know, it's not like the guy will be like, you know what, I'll try this out. It feels better than, you know, my hand. Plus it feels closer to the natural thing, and it's a lot less work. If it's someone who's an addict of porn and masturbation, then that's what they'll think of. That's what they'll decide to do. them hitting it and just quitting it with a sex toy each and every time is a convenient option. And hell, I wouldn't blame them. But if it's someone who's an addict of sex, and I will be very straight with you, there are differences between a sex addict, a porn addict, a masturbation addict. Sex addiction has levels. It has straight up levels, and people will never really understand the difference up until they actually go and do the research. So that being said, I don't think that y'all should really have an issue with guys having sex toys, because in all honesty, I think every guy needs them. And this whole Samantha phobia needs to kind of die, because just because Samantha is there doesn't mean that the woman is going to, be replaced. Expecting it to be a replacement is like, I don't know, it's like expecting Red Bull to replace candy or cake, or pretty much sipping on glucose and expecting it to replace actual food. It's not gonna happen. Like I said, unless you're addicted to that shit. So if y'all could just stop the phobia and quit it, I think the sex toy industry would probably improve. Because how many people will ever come out and say, you know what, I have a business of selling dildos, I have a business of selling sex toys? No one. So far in Kenya, I think I've only heard of one woman, and she claimed that she was making like a profit, or I don't know if it was actual revenue or profit, but she said she was making about $1 million a month. I'm assuming that that's probably revenue. And most of it was dildos and vibrators that ladies used to buy. But now if you expanded it to the men, I think guys would be more open to getting themselves a sex toy. The only problem is it would mostly be single men or guys living on their own, because if you live with a shorty and she finds you the sex toy, it's apparently a problem. I'm not going to say that guys don't ever have any issues with vibrators or dildos, but it's a lot less. And guys are more understanding nowadays. We expect that shit and we're fine with it. But a shorty finds you with a pocket pussy, with one of those sex toy machines, like those suction ones, or you get yourself a full-on Samantha, that is automatically a problem for them. And I don't get why. It's a simple way to get off. It's like training before the actual match, when you think about it. And I think we all need a bit of training before the actual match. Anyways, I will let you guys get back to work, back to traffic, whichever it is you're handling with. Always put that process in that progress, or be the prevention. It has been me, Sir Denver B, on Battle of the Sexes. I will see you guys later.